The rain poured down on the busy streets of Manhattan as people rushed past each other with umbrellas held high. Among the crowd stood a small figure that nobody seemed to notice. 7-year-old Maya pressed herself against the cold brick wall of a department store, her thin jacket doing little to protect her from the October chill. Her dark skin glistened with raindrops, and her braided hair was coming loose from its rubber bands. Maya watched as families walked by, mothers holding their children's hands, fathers carrying shopping bags filled with toys and clothes. Her brown eyes followed each group with a longing that made her chest hurt. She had been standing there for almost an hour, watching the same scene repeat itself over and over again. Every child seemed to have someone who cared about them, someone who made sure they stayed dry in the rain. She didn't have that anymore. Her mother had died 3 months ago from an illness that came too fast and took her away before Maya could truly understand what was happening. One day her mother was there, weak but smiling from her hospital bed, and the next day the social workers were explaining that Maya would need to go to a foster home. The family she lived with now was kind enough, but there were 5 other children in the house, and Mrs. was always too busy to give Maya the attention her heart craved. Today was supposed to be special. Today was family day at school, and all the other children had brought their parents to the classroom. Maya had sat alone at her desk while her teacher, Miss, tried to keep her occupied with extra coloring pages. But Maya could see the pity in her teacher's eyes, and that made everything worse. So when the school day ended, instead of going back to the foster home, Maya had taken the subway into the city. She had been saving her lunch money for weeks, and she had exactly $8.47 in her pocket. She wasn't sure what she was looking for. Maybe she just needed to feel close to people who looked happy, to pretend for a little while that she belonged to one of these families rushing past her. The rain was getting heavier now, and Maya's sneakers were completely soaked through. She started to shiver, wrapping her arms around herself for warmth. That's when she saw him. A tall man stepped out of a sleek black car that had pulled up right in front of where Maya was standing. He was wearing an expensive-looking suit that probably cost more than everything Maya owned put together. His skin was dark like hers, and he moved with the kind of confidence that made people automatically step aside to let him pass. 2 men in dark suits flanked him, clearly bodyguards, and a woman with a tablet was speaking rapidly about something that sounded important. The man stopped suddenly, right in the middle of the sidewalk, causing his entourage to halt abruptly behind him. He was looking directly at Maya. For a moment, they just stared at each other, the billionaire businessman and the small foster child, connected by something neither of them could name. Wellington had been on his way to another meeting, another deal worth millions of dollars that would make his company even more successful than it already was. At 42 years old, he had built an empire from nothing, starting with a small tech startup in his garage and turning it into one of the most influential companies in the world. People respected him, feared him sometimes, and always wanted something from him. He had everything money could buy, houses in 5 different countries, cars that most people only saw in magazines, and enough wealth to last several lifetimes. But as he looked at this small child standing alone in the rain, something cracked open inside his chest. He saw himself 35 years ago, a boy from the south side of Chicago who had lost his own mother to violence when he was just 9 years old. He remembered that specific kind of loneliness, the kind that made you feel invisible even when you were standing in a crowded room. Held up his hand, stopping his assistant mid-sentence. He walked toward Maya, and his bodyguards immediately moved to follow him, but he waved them back. He approached slowly, not wanting to frighten her, and crouched down so he was at her eye level. "Hey there," he said gently. "Are you okay? Where are your parents?" Maya's lower lip trembled. She had been holding back tears all day, but something about this man's kind voice made it harder to keep them inside. She shook her head slowly. "I don't have parents," she said quietly. "My mom died, and I never knew my dad." Felt his heart constrict. The rain was still falling, soaking through his expensive suit, but he didn't care. "Where are you supposed to be right now? Does someone know where you are?" Maya looked down at her wet sneakers. "I live in a foster home in Queens, but I didn't want to go back there today. It's family day at school, and everyone had their families there except me." A tear rolled down her cheek, mixing with the raindrops. "I just wanted to feel like I had a mom just for today, just for one day." The words hit like a physical blow. He thought about all the business meetings he had attended, all the deals he had closed, all the success he had achieved. None of it seemed to matter in this moment. This child, standing in the rain, wanting something so simple and so impossible. "What's your name?" asked. "Maya," she whispered. "Maya Johnson." "Maya, listen, you must be freezing. My car is right here. How about we get you dried off and warmed up, and then we'll figure out how to get you home safely. I promise I won't let anything bad happen to you." Maya studied his face carefully. Her mother had always told her not to trust strangers, but there was something in this man's eyes that reminded her of how her own mother used to look at her. It was a look that said she mattered, that she was worth protecting. As she nodded slowly, stood up and gestured to his driver, who immediately opened the car door, helped Maya into the warm interior, then climbed in after her. His assistant, Jennifer, looked shocked but said nothing. The bodyguards got into a separate vehicle behind them. Inside the car, grabbed a blanket from the back seat and wrapped it around Maya's shaking shoulders. He turned up the heat and handed her a bottle of water from the mini fridge. "Better?" he asked. Maya nodded, pulling the soft blanket around herself. She had never been in a car like this before. The seats were made of leather so soft it felt like butter, and there were screens and buttons everywhere. It smelled like expensive cologne and new car smell. Jennifer said carefully from the front seat, "Your meeting with the investors starts in 20 minutes. They've flown in from Tokyo specifically for this." Didn't take his eyes off Maya. "Cancel it, reschedule for tomorrow." "But sir, they're only in town for today. This deal has been in the works for 6 months." "I said cancel it, Jennifer. Some things are more important than money." Jennifer's eyes widened in surprise. In the 5 years she had worked for Wellington, she had never heard him say anything like that. She had seen him conduct business calls from hospital rooms, close deals during his father's funeral, and refused to cancel meetings for anything short of a natural disaster. But now he was throwing away a multi-million-dollar opportunity for a child he had just met on the street. It turned his attention back to Maya. "Are you hungry?" Maya nodded. She hadn't eaten since breakfast, and that had only been a piece of toast that she had to split with another foster kid. "What do you like to eat?" asked. "I like pizza," Maya said quietly, "and ice cream." Smiled. "Pizza and ice cream it is. Driver, take us to's." As the car pulled away from the curb and merged into traffic, Maya stared out the window at the city passing by. The rain was still falling, but inside the warm car, wrapped in a blanket that probably cost more than a month of her foster mother's grocery budget, she felt safe for the first time in months. "Maya," said gently, "you said you wanted to feel like you had a mom for one day. I can't be your mom, but what if I spent the day with you? We could do whatever you want. Would that be okay?" Maya turned to look at him, her eyes wide with disbelief. "Really? But don't you have important things to do?" Jennifer said something about a meeting. "Nothing is more important than making sure you're okay," said, and he meant it. "So what do you say? Will you let me be your friend for the day?" Maya's face broke into the first real smile had seen from her. "Yes," she said. "Yes, please." The car pulled up in front of Pizza, a place that had been serving New York-style pizza since 1905. Had eaten in the finest restaurants around the world, but there was something special about this place. It reminded him of being young, of simpler times before money and success had complicated everything. They sat in a corner booth and ordered a large pizza with extra cheese, just the way Maya liked it. While they waited for the food, asked Maya about her life. She told him about her school, about how she was good at math but struggled with reading. She told him about her mother, about how she used to sing to Maya every night before bed, songs that her own grandmother had taught her. "Well, what was your favorite thing to do with your mom?" asked. Maya thought for a moment. "We used to go to the park on Sundays. She would push me on the swings and we would feed the ducks. And sometimes when she had extra money, we would get hot chocolate from the vendor by the lake." Her eyes filled with tears again. "I miss her so much. Sometimes I forget what her voice sounded like, and that scares me." Reached across the table and gently took Maya's small hand in his. "It's okay to miss her, and it's okay to be sad. Your mom loved you very much, and that love doesn't go away just because she's not here anymore. It stays inside you forever." "Do you have a mom?" Maya asked. Shook his head. "Not anymore. She passed away when I was a little bit older than you. I was 9. "Did it get easier?" Maya's voice was so small, so hopeful. "It got different," said honestly. "The pain doesn't go away, but you learn to carry it. And you find other people who care about you, who help you carry it when it gets too heavy." The pizza arrived, and Maya ate like she hadn't seen food in days. Watched her, noticing how thin she was, how her clothes were slightly too small and worn at the edges. He thought about his own childhood, about going to bed hungry sometimes, about wearing shoes with holes in them until his feet bled. He had promised himself that if he ever made it big, he would never forget where he came from. But somewhere along the way, buried in meetings and deals and the constant pursuit of more, he had forgotten. This little girl was reminding him. After they finished eating, asked Maya where she wanted to go next. Her eyes lit up. "Can we go to a toy store?" she asked shyly. "I've never been to a really big toy store before. My mom always said we would go to FAO one day, but we never got the chance." His throat tightened. FAO had closed its famous Fifth Avenue location years ago, but it had reopened at a new spot at Plaza. "Let's go," he said. When they walked into the toy store, Maya's mouth fell open in wonder. The place was massive, filled with toys of every kind imaginable. There were stuffed animals as tall as grown men, dollhouses with more rooms than Maya's entire foster home, and displays that moved and lit up like something out of a dream. "You can pick out anything you want," told her. Maya walked slowly through the aisles, her eyes wide as she took everything in. She stopped in front of a display of dolls, beautiful dolls with different skin tones and hair textures. There was one doll in particular that caught her eye. It had dark skin like hers and wore a doctor's coat. The sign said it was a future doctor doll. "My mom wanted to be a nurse," Maya said quietly. "But she never got to finish school because she had me. She always said I should be a doctor someday, help people like she wanted to." Picked up the doll and handed it to Maya. "Then this is the perfect choice." He looked around the store. "What else do you want?" Maya shook her head. "This is enough. This is more than I ever thought I would get." But could see her eyes drifting to other items. A stuffed elephant, a art set, a book about space. He quietly signaled to a store employee and arranged for everything Maya had looked at to be purchased and delivered to her foster home. He also added clothes, shoes, school supplies, and a new warm jacket for the approaching winter. As they left the toy store, Maya clutching her new doll like it was the most precious thing in the world, she looked up with tears in her eyes. "Why are you being so nice to me?" she asked. "You don't even know me." Knelt down in front of her right there on the busy street with people rushing past them. "Because I was you once, Maya. I was a kid who lost his mom and didn't think anyone cared, and someone helped me. A teacher named Mr. Roberts. He saw me, really saw me when I felt invisible. He made sure I had food, helped me with homework, encouraged me to dream bigger than my circumstances. He's the reason I am where I am today, so maybe I'm helping you because someone helped me. Or maybe I'm helping you because you deserve help, just like every kid does." Maya threw her arms around his neck and hugged him tight. Hugged her back, feeling something shift inside him, some wall he had built around his heart starting to crumble. They spent the rest of the afternoon together. Took Maya to the Natural History Museum, where she stared in awe at the dinosaur fossils. They walked through Central Park and pushed Maya on the swings just like her mother used to do. They got hot chocolate from a vendor, and Maya declared it the best hot chocolate she had ever tasted. As the sun started to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, knew it was time to take Maya back to her foster home. The thought made his chest ache. He had only known this child for a few hours, but the idea of leaving her in a place where she felt alone and invisible was almost unbearable. In the car on the way to Queens, Maya was quiet. She held her new doll close and stared out the window. Could see the sadness creeping back into her expression. "Maya," he said gently, "I want you to know that today doesn't have to be the end. I would like to stay in your life if that's okay with you. I can't be your mom, but maybe I could be like a big brother or an uncle. We could spend time together and I could help make sure you have what you need." Maya turned to look at him, hope and fear battling in her eyes. "Really? You would do that? You won't forget about me?" "I promise I won't forget about you," said. "In fact, I'm going to talk to your foster mother tonight and make arrangements. We'll figure this out together." When they arrived at the foster home in Queens, a modest row house with a small front yard, Mrs. came rushing out, looking worried and angry. But when she saw step out of the luxury car with Maya, her expression changed to confusion. "Maya Johnson, where have you been? I've been worried sick. I called the school, I called everyone I could think of." "I'm sorry," Mrs. said, stepping forward. "Maya and I met this afternoon. She was upset about family day at school, and I wanted to make sure she was okay. My name is Wellington." He handed her his business card. "I would very much like to discuss Maya's situation with you if you have a few moments." Mrs. looked at the card, and her eyes widened as she recognized the name. Everyone in New York knew who Wellington was. His face had been on the cover of Forbes magazine just last month. They went inside, and while the other foster children crowded around to see the fancy car outside, and Mrs. talked in the kitchen, Maya sat at the table, listening as explained his proposal. He wanted to become Maya's mentor and sponsor. He would provide financial support for anything Maya needed: clothes, school supplies, tutoring, activities. He wanted to spend time with her regularly, take her on outings, and be a stable presence in her life. He promised to go through all the proper legal channels and background checks. The following weeks brought changes to Maya's life that she never could have imagined. Kept his promise. He called every single day, sometimes just to ask how her day at school went, sometimes to tell her about something funny that happened at his office. On Saturdays, he would pick her up and they would spend the whole day together, doing things Maya had only dreamed about. He took her to Broadway shows where they sat in the best seats in the house, and Maya watched in wonder as actors sang and danced on stage. They visited the Bronx Zoo where Maya learned about animals from all over the world and declared that elephants were her favorite because they never forgot anything, just like how she would never forget her mother. Took her to science museums where interactive exhibits taught her about space and planets and how the universe worked. But the most important changes were the small ones. Made sure Maya had new clothes that fit properly, warm jackets for the cold New York winter, and shoes that didn't pinch her feet. He hired a tutor to help her with reading, and within a month, Maya had jumped up 2 reading levels. He made sure she had nutritious meals and even taught Mrs. some healthy recipes that the whole foster home could enjoy. At school, Miss noticed the change in Maya immediately. The quiet, withdrawn girl who used to sit alone at lunch was now raising her hand in class, participating in discussions, and making friends with other children. Maya started to smile more, laugh more, and slowly, the heavy sadness that had weighed her down began to lift. But it wasn't just Maya who was changing. Found himself transformed by this relationship too. For years, he had been focused entirely on his business, on making deals and growing his empire. His days had been filled with board meetings, conference calls, and negotiations. He dated occasionally, but never seriously, always keeping people at arm's length, never letting anyone get too close. His penthouse apartment was beautiful and expensive, but it was empty, just like large parts of his life had been. Now he had a reason to leave work at a reasonable hour. He had someone who was excited to see him, who didn't want anything from him except his time and attention. Maya taught him to slow down, to notice the small things he had been rushing past for years. She taught him that success wasn't just about money in the bank or deals closed, but about the connections you made with other people, the lives you touched, the love you gave and received. His employees noticed the change too, started a new program at his company offering generous parental leave and benefits. He increased funding for the company's charitable foundation, with a special focus on helping foster children and orphans. He started volunteering at youth centers in underprivileged neighborhoods, bringing some of his employees with him. The cold, ruthless businessman that some people had called him was softening, becoming more human, more connected to the world around him. 3 months after that rainy day when they first met, invited Maya to his penthouse for dinner. She had been to his office building before, but never to his home. When she stepped off the private elevator into the apartment, her mouth fell open. The entire place was like something from a movie, with floor-to-ceiling windows that overlooked all of Manhattan, furniture that looked too expensive to sit on, and art on the walls that probably cost more than most people made in a lifetime. But what caught Maya's attention was the piano sitting in the corner of the living room. A beautiful grand piano that gleamed in the light from the windows. "Do you play?" Maya asked, walking over to the instrument and gently touching the keys. Nodded. "My mother taught me when I was young. I haven't played much in recent years, but it used to be something we did together." "Will you play something for me?" Maya asked. Sat down at the piano bench and patted the space beside him. Maya climbed up and sat next to him. He began to play, a soft melody that filled the apartment with warmth and feeling. Maya watched his fingers move across the keys, and she felt tears forming in her eyes, not sad tears this time, but tears of something she couldn't quite name. When he finished, Maya was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "That was beautiful. My mom used to sing to me. I wish you could have heard her voice." "Tell me about her," said. "Tell me everything you remember." And Maya did. She talked about how her mother worked 2 jobs to keep a roof over their heads, how she always made time to help Maya with homework no matter how tired she was. She talked about the way her mother laughed, loud and free, and how she used to dance around their tiny apartment while cooking dinner. She talked about the hard times, too, about watching her mother get sicker, about the hospital visits, about the day the doctor said there was nothing more they could do. Listened to every word, and when Maya started crying, he held her and let her cry. He didn't try to tell her it would be okay or that she should stop being sad. He just let her feel what she needed to feel, and that was exactly what she needed. "Maya," said when her tears had slowed, "I want to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Are you happy at Mrs.'s house? Do you feel safe there?" Maya hesitated. Mrs. was kind, and the house was clean and warm, but there were so many children and not enough attention to go around. Maya often felt lost in the crowd, invisible again. "It's okay," she said quietly. Mrs. is nice, but sometimes I feel like nobody really sees me there, like I'm just another kid to feed and put to bed. Nodded. He had been thinking about this for weeks, wrestling with a decision that seemed both crazy and completely necessary. What if there was another option? What if you could live somewhere else, somewhere you wouldn't feel invisible? Maya looked up at him with hopeful eyes. Where? Here, said simply, with me. Maya's eyes went wide. What? But how? You're not married and you're busy all the time with work, and I'm just a kid you met a few months ago. Smiled. You're not just anything, Maya. You're special. You're important. And yes, I'm busy with work, but I can hire people to help. I can adjust my schedule. I've already spoken with my lawyer about what it would take to become your foster parent, and eventually, if you wanted, to adopt you. Maya felt like her heart might burst right out of her chest. You want to adopt me, like be my real dad? I would be honored to be your dad, said. If that's what you want, we would have to go through the proper process, work with social services, make sure everything is done right. It might take time, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes if you'll give me the chance. Maya threw her arms around his neck and held on tight. Yes, she whispered. Yes, 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 I want that more than anything. The process of becoming Maya's foster parent and working toward adoption was complicated and lengthy. Had to undergo background checks, home inspections, and interviews with social workers. His wealth actually made some people suspicious at first. Why would a billionaire bachelor suddenly want to adopt a 7-year-old foster child? Was this some kind of publicity stunt? Did he have ulterior motives? But as the social workers spent time with and Maya together, they could see that the relationship was genuine. They saw how lit up when Maya entered the room, how he knew all her favorite foods and which subjects she struggled with at school. They saw how Maya trusted him completely, how she had started calling him Dad, because she wasn't quite ready to call him just Dad yet, but she wanted him to know he was becoming that to her. 6 months after they first met, Maya moved into his penthouse. He had completely renovated one of the bedrooms just for her, letting her help choose the colors and decorations. The walls were painted a soft lavender, her favorite color, and there was a reading nook by the window with cushions and a special lamp. He had filled the with books at every reading level, from picture books to chapter books she could grow into. There was a desk for homework, an art station with every supply she could need, and a bed so comfortable that Maya felt like she was sleeping on a cloud. But the most special thing in the room was a framed photograph on the nightstand. It was a picture of Maya's mother, smiling and beautiful, taken before she got sick. Had tracked down Maya's old neighbor who had the photo and had it professionally restored and framed. Next to it was a new photograph from just last week of and Maya at the park, both of them laughing at something funny that had happened. Maya's first night in her new home, tucked her into bed and sat on the edge of the mattress. "Oh, are you happy here?" he asked. Maya nodded, clutching her Dr. doll close. "This is the best place I've ever lived, but Dad, can I ask you something?" Anything." "Do you think my mom would be okay with this? With me having a new dad? Sometimes I worry that she would think I'm forgetting about her." Felt his throat get tight with emotion. Maya, your mother loved you more than anything in this world, and a mother's love means wanting your child to be happy, safe, and cared for. I think she would be grateful that you found someone to look after you. You're not forgetting her by loving me. The heart has an unlimited capacity for love. You can love your mother's memory and love me at the same time. They don't cancel each other out. Do you think she can see me, from heaven or wherever she is? I don't know for sure, said honestly, but I like to think that the people we love never really leave us. They live on in our memories, in the lessons they taught us, in the love they gave us that we then give to others. Your mother is part of who you are, and she always will be. Maya smiled and closed her eyes. Then I think she would like you. I think she would be happy I found you. Leaned down and kissed her forehead. Sleep well, sweetheart. I'll be right down the hall if you need anything. Dad, Maya called out as he reached the door. Oh, yes. Thank you for seeing me that day in the rain. Thank you for not walking past like everyone else did. Felt tears prick his eyes. Thank you for letting me into your life, Maya. You've given me something I didn't even know I was missing. The months that followed brought a rhythm and routine to their lives. Hired a nanny named, a warm grandmother-type woman who had raised 5 children of her own. She was there when had to be at work, making sure Maya got to school on time, helping with homework and cooking healthy meals, but made it clear that he was Maya's primary caregiver. He was the one who went to parent-teacher conferences, who signed permission slips, who stayed home when Maya was sick. He cut back on his work travel, conducting most meetings by video conference instead of flying around the world. When he did have to travel, he often took Maya with him, turning business trips into learning experiences. They went to Tokyo, where Maya tried sushi for the first time and learned a few words in Japanese. They went to London, where they visited the Tower of London and Palace. They went to Paris, where they climbed the tower and ate croissants while watching people walk by. Maya's world was expanding in ways she never could have imagined, but made sure she stayed grounded too. He enrolled her in a public school in their neighborhood, not a fancy private school, because he wanted her to grow up with children from all different backgrounds. He made sure she had chores and responsibilities, that she understood the value of hard work and didn't take her privilege for granted. He also made sure Maya stayed connected to her roots. They visited her mother's grave every month, bringing fresh flowers and telling stories about what was happening in Maya's life. Helped Maya create a memory book about her mother, filling it with photos, stories, and mementos. He made sure Maya understood that her past was nothing to be ashamed of, that where she came from was part of what made her special. 1 year after they first met, the adoption was finalized. The judge signed the papers making Wellington officially Maya's father and Maya Johnson officially Maya Wellington. They celebrated with a small party at the penthouse, inviting Mrs. and some of the other foster children, Miss from Maya's school, the nanny, and some of closest friends and colleagues. Maya wore a new dress, a beautiful blue one that made her feel like a princess, and she couldn't stop smiling. During the party, pulled her aside onto the balcony where they could see the city lights twinkling below them. How does it feel, asked, to officially be Maya Wellington? Maya thought about it for a moment. It feels like coming home, she said. Not home to a place, but home to a person. Does that make sense? Perfect sense, said. That's exactly how I feel too. You've given me a home, Maya, in here. He touched his chest right over his heart. A place I didn't even realize was empty until you filled it. Can I tell you something? Maya asked. Always. I'm ready to call you Dad now. Not Dad, just Dad. Felt tears roll down his cheeks, something that rarely happened to him, but seemed to happen more often these days where Maya was concerned. I would be honored, sweetheart. Maya hugged him tight. I love you, Dad. I love you too, Maya, more than you'll ever know. From the balcony, they could see the city stretching out before them, millions of lights representing millions of lives, everyone with their own stories, their own struggles, their own dreams. Somewhere out there was the spot where they had met, where a cold, lonely child had asked a powerful man a simple question, and where that question had changed both of their lives forever. Inside the apartment, the party continued. Miss was telling about Maya's improvement in school, how she had become one of the top students in her class. Some of his business colleagues were surprised to see this side of him, the man who played board games with an 8-year-old and made silly voices when reading her bedtime stories. Mrs. was wiping tears from her eyes, happy to see one of her foster children find such a wonderful home. But none of them fully understood the miracle that had happened here. They didn't know that this relationship had saved two people, not just one. They didn't know that had been living a half-life before Maya, successful but unfulfilled, wealthy but empty. They didn't know that Maya had given him purpose and meaning beyond money and power. And Maya didn't fully understand yet how remarkable her own journey had been. From a child standing alone in the rain to a daughter tucked safely into a loving home. She didn't realize how rare it was to be seen, truly seen, in a world where people walked past each other every day without making eye contact. She didn't know that the question she had asked that day, born from pain and longing and desperate hope, had been exactly the right question asked to exactly the right person at exactly the right moment. As the party wound down and guests started to leave, Maya began to feel tired. It had been a long, emotional day, full of happiness, but also full of memories of her mother, who should have been there to see this moment. Noticed her energy flagging and suggested it was time for bed. Maya said goodnight to everyone, giving extra long hugs to Mrs. and Miss, two women who had cared for her during the darkest time of her life. Then carried her to her bedroom, even though she was really too big to be carried. But she didn't complain because she liked feeling small and safe in her father's arms. After she had changed into her pajamas and brushed her teeth, sat on the edge of her bed like he did every night. Dad, Maya said, do you think there are other kids out there like I was? Kids who are lonely and scared and just want someone to see them. I know there are, said. There are millions of children in foster care, in orphanages, living on the streets. Children who deserve love and safety and a chance at a good life. Maya was quiet for a moment, thinking, can we help them? Not all of them, because that would be impossible, but some of them. Smiled, what did you have in mind? Well, you're really rich, right? And you have this big company with lots of employees. What if we started something like a program or a foundation that helps kids like me find families? or helps foster parents like Mrs. get more resources so they can take better care of the kids they have. Felt pride swell in his chest. That's a brilliant idea, Maya. We could absolutely do that. In fact, why don't we work on it together? You can help me figure out what kids need most, what would have helped you when you were in the foster system. Maya's eyes lit up. Really, I could help. Of course, you're the expert here. You know what it's like better than any adult could understand. And so began a new chapter in their story. Over the following months, and Maya worked together to establish the Wellington Foundation for Children. They focused on three main areas: helping foster children get access to education, extracurricular activities, and mental health support, providing resources and training for foster parents, and creating a mentorship program that connected successful adults with kids in the foster system. Maya became the face of the foundation. At just 8 years old, she spoke at fundraising events, sharing her story with courage and honesty. She talked about the loneliness of foster care, about what it felt like to be invisible, about the day she met her dad and how one person's kindness had changed her entire life. Her 2 years passed since the adoption was finalized, and Maya was now 10 years old. She had grown taller, her confidence had blossomed, and she was thriving in ways that seemed impossible during those dark days after her mother's death. But with growth came new challenges, and was learning that being a parent meant facing difficult situations he had never anticipated. The trouble started at school. Maya had made several close friends over the past couple of years, including a girl named Jasmine who lived in the same building, and a boy named Tyler from her class. But recently, a new girl named Brittany had transferred to their school, and she came from a family with old money and old prejudices. One afternoon, got a call from the principal asking him to come to the school immediately. His heart raced as he canceled his afternoon meetings and rushed over. When he arrived, he found Maya sitting in the principal's office with red, puffy eyes, her arms crossed tightly over her chest. "What happened?" asked, kneeling down in front of her chair. The principal, Mrs., sighed heavily. There was an incident on the playground. Maya and Brittany got into a confrontation that became physical. Before I explain further, I want you to know that we've reviewed the security footage and spoken to multiple witnesses. The situation is more complicated than it might appear. Maya said gently, "Can you tell me what happened?" Maya's lower lip trembled. "Brittany said mean things about Mom, my real mom. She said that my mom must have been a terrible person because she died and left me alone, and that's why I ended up in foster care. She said I was charity case trash that you only adopted to make yourself look good, like I'm some kind of pet or publicity stunt." Felt anger surge through him, hot and fierce. He took a deep breath, trying to control his emotions. "And what did you do?" "I told her to take it back," Maya said, tears streaming down her face now. "I told her my mom was amazing and she died from being sick, not from being a bad person. But Brittany just laughed and said more mean things. She said you probably regret adopting me, that I don't belong in their neighborhood, that I should go back to where I came from." Maya's voice dropped to a whisper. "So I pushed her, hard. She fell down and scraped her knee." Mrs. spoke up. The security footage clearly shows that Brittany was the instigator. She deliberately provoked Maya with cruel and, frankly, racist comments. However, our policy is zero tolerance for physical violence, regardless of provocation. Both girls are receiving consequences, though Brittany's are more severe given the nature of her words. Pulled Maya into a hug. I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself and for your mother's memory. But Mrs. is right. We can't solve problems by pushing people, even when they deserve it. There are better ways to handle situations like this. Like what? Maya asked, her voice muffled against his shoulder. What was I supposed to do? Just let her say those horrible things. You could have walked away and gotten a teacher. You could have told Brittany that her words say more about her than they do about you. You could have remembered that people who are truly happy and secure don't need to tear others down. Pulled back so he could look Maya in the eyes. But I also understand why you reacted the way you did. When someone attacks the people we love, especially people who can't defend themselves anymore, it hits us right in the heart. Mrs. cleared her throat. Mr. Wellington, there's something else you should know. This isn't the first time Brittany has made these kinds of comments. Several other students have reported similar incidents. We're addressing this seriously with her parents and requiring her to participate in diversity and sensitivity training. But I wanted you to be aware that this might not be an isolated incident. Nodded grimly. I appreciate you telling me, and Maya will accept whatever reasonable consequences you've set for the physical altercation. But I also want to make sure the school is doing everything possible to create a safe environment for all students. On the drive home, Maya was quiet. Could see her processing everything, her young mind trying to make sense of prejudice and hatred, concepts that shouldn't exist in a child's world but unfortunately did. Dad, she finally said, why do some people hate others just because of how they look or where they came from? Pulled the car over to the side of the road and turned to face his daughter. That's a big question, sweetheart. The simple answer is fear. People fear what they don't understand, what seems different from them. And sometimes people have been taught to hate by their parents or their community, and they never questioned whether those teachings were right. Oh, but that's stupid, Maya said. Being different doesn't make someone bad. You're absolutely right. It is stupid. But here's what I've learned in my life. You can't control what other people think or say about you. You can only control how you respond to it. And the best revenge against people who try to make you feel small is to live a big, successful, happy life. Show them they're wrong by being amazing. Like you did, Maya asked. Smiled. Yes, like I did. I grew up in a neighborhood where people told me I would never amount to anything, that boys like me ended up dead or in prison, not in boardrooms. Every time someone doubted me, I used it as fuel to work harder to prove them wrong. Not for their sake, but for mine. Did it make you feel better, proving them wrong? Honestly, not as much as I thought it would. Because I realized that living well isn't about proving anything to people who don't matter. It's about proving something to yourself. It's about knowing your own worth regardless of what anyone else thinks. Maya thought about this for a moment. I know my worth, she said finally. You taught me that, and my mom taught me that too before she died. I'm worthy of love and respect just because I exist, not because of anything I have to prove. Felt his eyes get watery. That's exactly right, sweetheart. Don't let anyone ever make you forget that. When they got home, Maya went straight to her room. Could hear her in there, talking to herself or maybe talking to the photograph of her mother that still sat on her nightstand. He gave her space, understanding that sometimes people needed to process their feelings alone before they were ready to talk about them. An hour later, Maya emerged from her room carrying a notebook. Dad, I've been thinking, maybe this thing with Brittany is a sign. A sign of what? A sign that we need to do more with the foundation. We help kids find families and we help foster parents, but we're not really teaching people about acceptance and understanding. What if we started a program in schools where kids learn about different types of families and different backgrounds? Maybe if kids learn young that being different is okay, they won't grow up to be mean like Brittany. Looked at his daughter with amazement. She was 10 years old and thinking about systemic solutions to prejudice. That's incredibly insightful, Maya. I think that's a fantastic idea. Why don't we work on developing a curriculum together? Over the next few weeks, and Maya collaborated with educators and child psychologists to create an elementary school program about diversity, acceptance, and different family structures. They called it Every Family Counts, and it featured age-appropriate lessons about foster families, adoptive families, single-parent families, grandparents raising, families with two moms or two dads, and more. The program launched as a pilot in several New York City schools, including Maya's own school. Maya helped create some of the materials, drawing pictures and writing stories based on her own experiences. One of her stories, "The Girl Who Found Her Dad in the Rain," became the centerpiece of the curriculum. She wrote about feeling invisible, about being brave enough to ask for help, and about learning that families could be built through love, not just through blood. The response to the program was overwhelmingly positive. Teachers reported that students were having meaningful conversations about acceptance and kindness. Parents thanked Maya for creating something that helped their children understand and appreciate diversity. And some parents, inspired by Maya's story, began the process of becoming foster parents themselves. But not everyone was happy about it. Brittany's parents were among the critics. They complained to the school board that the program was pushing a political agenda, that it was indoctrination rather than education. They tried to get the program removed from the curriculum. The school board held a public meeting to discuss the program, and Maya attended. Dozens of people showed up to speak, both for and against the program. Sat quietly while person after person argued about whether children should be taught about different types of families. Finally, the board chair asked if Maya wanted to speak, looked at his daughter, silently asking if she was ready. Maya nodded and stood up, walking to the microphone with her head held high. "My name is Maya Wellington," she began, her voice steady despite her nervousness. "I'm 10 years old and I'm here to talk about why this program matters. 2 years ago, I was a foster kid. My mom had died and I felt like nobody in the world could see me. I felt invisible and alone and scared. And then one day I met my dad. He saw me. He chose to love me. He chose to be my family." Maya paused, gathering her thoughts. The room was completely silent, everyone listening to this young girl's words. Some people think families only count if they look a certain way or come together a certain way. But I'm proof that's not true. My dad and I don't have the same blood, but we're still a real family. And there are millions of kids like me, kids in foster care, kids being raised by their grandparents, kids with two moms or two dads, kids in all different kinds of families. Don't we deserve to see ourselves in what we learn at school? Don't we deserve to know that our families count too? Tears were streaming down several faces in the audience now, including's. He had never been more proud of his daughter than he was in this moment. This program isn't about politics, Maya continued. It's about kindness. It's about teaching kids that different doesn't mean wrong. It's about making sure no child feels the way I felt when people made fun of me for being adopted, or when they said my family wasn't real because it didn't look like theirs. If teaching kids to be kind and accepting is wrong, then I don't understand what right is supposed to be. Maya returned to her seat and pulled her into a tight hug. "You were perfect," he whispered. The school board voted unanimously to keep the program. Even some of the people who had been skeptical admitted that Maya's words had changed their minds. They couldn't argue with the simple truth she had spoken. Brittany's family pulled her out of the school shortly after, enrolling her in a private institution that better aligned with their views. But something unexpected happened. About a month later, Brittany's mother reached out through his office. She asked if they could meet for coffee. Was hesitant, but he agreed. He met Brittany's mother, Helen, at a quiet in Midtown. She looked nervous and uncomfortable, and it took her several minutes to find the words she wanted to say. "I wanted to apologize," Helen finally said. "Not just for what Brittany said to Maya, but for the values I've been teaching my daughter. Hearing Maya speak at that school board meeting, seeing her courage and dignity, it made me realize how wrong I've been." Sipped his coffee, waiting for her to continue. "I grew up in a very traditional, very closed-minded family," Helen explained. "I was taught that there was only one right way to be a family, one right way to live. And I've been passing those same limited beliefs on to my daughter without questioning them. But Maya is right. Families come in all forms, and they're all valid if they're built on love." "Why are you telling me this?" asked. "Because I want to do better. I want Brittany to learn to do better. I was wondering if you and Maya would be willing to meet with us, to help my daughter understand what she did wrong and why her words were so hurtful. I don't want her growing up to be the kind of adult who spreads hate." I considered the request carefully. "I'll have to ask Maya if she's comfortable with that. This needs to be her decision." That evening explained the situation to Maya. "You don't have to do this," he assured her. "If you're not ready or if you don't want to, that's completely okay. You don't owe Brittany or her mother anything." Maya thought about it for a long time. "What do you think I should do?" she asked. "I think that's entirely up to you, sweetheart. But I will say this. Sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is show grace to people who have hurt us. Not because they deserve it, but because it frees us from carrying anger and resentment. Forgiveness isn't about saying what they did was okay. It's about choosing not to let their actions have power over us anymore." Did you forgive the people who were mean to you when you were young? Maya asked. Nodded slowly. Eventually, yes. It took time, but I realized that holding onto that anger was like drinking poison and expecting them to get sick. It only hurt me. Maya made her decision. Okay, I'll meet with them, but Dad, will you be there with me? Every step of the way, promised. The meeting happened on a Saturday afternoon at the Wellington Foundation offices. Brittany and her mother arrived looking nervous and uncomfortable. Brittany's eyes were red, like she had been crying, and she wouldn't make eye contact with Maya at first. They sat in a comfortable conference room that had set up to feel less intimidating, with soft chairs and artwork on the walls. Started by setting some ground rules. Everyone would speak respectfully, everyone would get a chance to talk without interruption, and the goal was understanding, not blame. Helen spoke first, apologizing again for the values she had taught her daughter. Then it was Brittany's turn. She looked at Maya with shame in her eyes. "I'm sorry," Brittany said quietly. "I'm sorry for what I said about your mom and about you. It was mean and wrong, and I didn't even really believe it. I was just trying to fit in with some other kids who were saying." Maya listened to Brittany's apology and watched his daughter's face carefully. He could see her processing everything, weighing the sincerity of the words against the pain they had caused. Finally, Maya spoke. "Thank you for apologizing," Maya said. "What you said hurt a lot. My mom was the most important person in my life, and she died trying to make sure I had a good life. When you made fun of her and me, it felt like you were saying we didn't matter, like our love didn't count." Brittany nodded, more tears falling. "I know, I'm really, really sorry." But I forgive you," Maya continued. "Because holding on to being mad at you doesn't help anyone, and because I think you can do better. We all make mistakes. What matters is what we do after we make them." The meeting lasted another hour, with the girls talking about their different experiences and perspectives. By the end, something remarkable had happened. These two children who had been at odds with each other had found common ground. They weren't best friends, but they had reached an understanding. As Brittany and her mother were leaving, Helen turned back to, "Thank you for giving us this chance. And Mr. Wellington, I've been thinking. My husband and I have significant resources that we've never really used to make a positive difference. We'd like to make a donation to the Wellington Foundation. A significant one." Raised his eyebrows. "That's very generous." "It's the least we can do. And beyond the money, I'd like to volunteer. I'd like to help with the Every Family Counts program to make sure it reaches as many schools as possible. Maybe I can't undo the prejudice I was raised with overnight, but I can work to make sure fewer children grow up with those same limited beliefs." After they left, looked at his daughter with admiration. "You handled that with such maturity and grace. I'm incredibly proud of you." Maya smiled. "You taught me that. You taught me that being strong doesn't always mean fighting back. Sometimes it means being kind even when it's hard." That conversation between Maya and Brittany became a turning point, not just for those two families, but for the Wellington Foundation itself. Helen made good on her promise, donating a substantial sum and recruiting other wealthy families to support the cause. The Every Family Counts program expanded from a pilot in a few schools to a full curriculum implemented in hundreds of schools across New York and eventually across the country. As Maya grew older, her role in the foundation grew as well. At 12, she started a peer mentorship program where kids who had been adopted or fostered could connect with each other online, sharing their experiences and supporting one another. At 13, she gave a talk about her journey from foster care to adoption, and the video went viral, viewed by millions of people around the world. But despite all the public attention and success, made sure that Maya's childhood remained as normal as possible. She still had to do homework and chores. She still had curfews and rules. She couldn't just buy whatever she wanted simply because they had money. Taught her the value of earning things, of working for what she wanted, of understanding that privilege came with responsibility. Maya's teenage years brought new challenges. When she was 14, she started asking questions about her biological father, a man she had never known. Her mother had rarely spoken about him, and Maya only knew that he had left before she was born. One evening, Maya came to while he was working in his home office. "Dad, can we talk about something?" Immediately closed his laptop and gave her his full attention. "Of course, what's on your mind?" Maya sat down in the chair across from his desk, fidgeting with her hands. "I've been thinking about my biological father. I know almost nothing about him, and I was wondering if maybe we could try to find him. Not because I want him to be my dad or anything. You're my dad. But I feel like there's this piece of my history that's missing, and I want to understand where I came from." Felt a complex mix of emotions, understanding, support, and if he was honest with himself, a little bit of fear that Maya might want a relationship with her biological father that would somehow diminish their bond. But he pushed that fear aside. "That's a completely natural thing to want to know," said. "Your biological father is part of your story, part of what made you who you are. We can absolutely try to find information about him if that's what you want." "You're not upset?" Maya asked. "No, sweetheart, I'm not upset. I understand the difference between the man who helped create you and the man who raised you. Those are two very different roles, and you're allowed to be curious about both." With support, Maya hired a private investigator to track down information about her biological father. What they discovered was both illuminating and disappointing. Maya's biological father, Robert Johnson, was living in Philadelphia. He had and had 3 other children. When the investigator had approached him about Maya, he had initially that she existed, then admitted that yes, he had gotten a woman pregnant years ago, but he had never wanted to be a father at that time. Robert refused to meet Maya or even speak to her on the phone. He said that part of his life was closed, and he didn't want to disrupt his current family by dredging up the past. The investigator reported that Robert showed no interest in knowing his daughter, no curiosity about who she had become. Was furious when he heard this. He wanted to fly to Philadelphia and tell this man exactly what he thought of him, to make him understand what an incredible daughter he had abandoned. But he controlled his anger because this wasn't about him. This was about Maya and what she needed. When told Maya what they had discovered, he watched her face carefully. He saw disappointment, hurt, and something that looked like relief all mixed together. "So he doesn't want to know me," Maya said flatly. "That's what he said. But Maya, I need you to understand something. His choice says absolutely nothing about you. You are wonderful, talented, kind, and brilliant. Any parent would be lucky to have you as their daughter. His inability to see that is his loss, not yours." Maya was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I think part of me already knew he wouldn't want to meet me. If he had wanted to be my father, he would have been there from the beginning. But I'm glad we looked. Now I know and I can stop wondering." "How do you feel?" asked gently. "Sad, I guess, but also kind of grateful. Because if he had been in my life, maybe I never would have met you. Maybe I would never have become who I am now. So in a weird way, his absence made room for something better." Pulled Maya into a hug. "You are wise beyond your years, you know that." "I learned from the best," Maya said, hugging him back. That experience, difficult as it was, seemed to solidify something in Maya. She stopped introducing as her adoptive father and just called him her dad, period. She stopped qualifying their relationship or feeling like she needed to explain it to anyone. Was her father in every way that mattered, and she finally felt completely at peace with that. When Maya turned 16, threw her a big birthday party at their penthouse. Friends from school were there, along with kids from the Foundation's mentorship program, teachers, and family friends. But Maya insisted on one other group of guests, Mrs. and several of the kids who had been in foster care with Maya all those years ago. During the party, Maya gave a short speech. "I want to thank all of you for being here tonight. 16 years ago, I was born to a mother who loved me with her whole heart but didn't have much else to give. 8 years ago, that mother died, and I thought my life was over. I thought I would always be alone, always be invisible, always be that kid nobody wanted." The room was silent, everyone listening to Maya's words. "But then I met my dad," Maya continued, looking at with love in her eyes. "And he taught me that family isn't just about blood. It's about choosing each other every single day. It's about showing up even when it's hard. It's about loving someone not because you have to, but because you want to." I felt tears streaming down his face, not caring who saw them. "Dad, you could have walked past me that day in the rain. You could have given me some money and gone on with your important meeting. But you didn't. You saw me, really saw me, and that changed everything." Maya raised her glass. "So this toast is to everyone here who has ever chosen to see someone, to help someone, to love someone, because those choices matter. They save lives. They certainly saved mine." The room erupted in applause and tears. People hugged each other. Strangers bonded over shared emotions. And the party transformed from a typical teenage celebration into something much more meaningful. Later that night, after all the guests had left and they were cleaning up, Maya found an envelope on the gift table addressed to her in handwriting she didn't recognize. Inside was a letter and a check for $50,000 made out to the Wellington Foundation. The letter read, "Dear Maya, you don't know me, but I was at your sweet 16 party tonight. I came as the guest of a friend, and I didn't plan on staying long. But your speech changed something in me. I'm a 50-year-old successful lawyer who has spent my whole life focused on my career. I never thought I wanted children, never thought I had the time or patience for parenting. But listening to you talk about how one person's choice to see you changed your life, I realized I've been walking past people in need my whole life. I've been so focused on my own success that I've never stopped to consider how I could use that success to help others. Tomorrow, I'm going to start the process of becoming a foster parent. I'm going to choose to see someone the way your father saw you. Thank you for inspiring me. Thank you for reminding me what really matters. The check is a small contribution to the incredible work you and your father are doing. I hope it helps more children find the families they deserve. With admiration and respect, a changed person. Maya showed the letter, too, and they both cried again, which was becoming a common occurrence in their household. They had started something that was rippling out into the world, touching lives they would never even know about. As Maya prepared to enter her junior year of high school, she started thinking seriously about her future. She was excelling in her classes, particularly in science and math, and she was starting to consider what she wanted to study in college. One evening at dinner, Maya brought up the subject. "Dad, I've been thinking about what I want to do with my life. I know I'm only 16 and I have time to figure it out, but I feel like I have this responsibility, you know. I've been given so much, and I want to use it to help others." Nodded, "That's a beautiful impulse. What are you thinking about?" "I think I want to be a pediatrician, specializing in foster care medicine. I want to help kids who are in the system, kids who often don't get good health care because they're being moved around too much or because their foster parents don't have the resources or knowledge to get them proper medical care. And I want to continue the foundation work too, maybe expand it to help with medical care for foster children." Felt his heart swell with pride. "That's an incredible goal, Maya. You would be an amazing doctor." "But there's something else," Maya said. "I want to write a book about my story, about our story, not for fame or money, but because I think it might help other kids who are in foster care. I think it might help them believe that things can get better, that they're not invisible, that their lives matter." "I think that's a wonderful idea," said, "and I'll support you in any way I can." Over her junior year, Maya worked on her book in between homework, foundation work, and all the normal activities of being a teenager. She wrote about losing her mother, about the foster care system, about the day she met in the rain. She wrote about the challenges of being adopted, about dealing with prejudice and people who questioned whether her family was real. She wrote about forgiveness, growth, and learning to open her heart to love again after loss. Read each chapter as she finished it, and he was consistently amazed by his daughter's wisdom and insight. She wrote with honesty about both the beautiful and difficult parts of their journey together. She didn't shy away from the hard moments, the times when she pushed away because she was afraid to lose another parent, the times when struggled with the responsibilities of suddenly becoming a father. The book, titled Scene, A Foster Child's Journey to Family, was published when Maya was 17, just as she was starting her senior year of high school. It became an instant bestseller, not because of clever marketing, but because Maya's story resonated with people from all walks of life. Foster children saw themselves in her words. Adoptive parents found guidance and understanding. and people who had never thought about fostering or adoption before were moved to consider it. Maya did a book tour, speaking at schools, libraries, and community centers. At every stop, people lined up to meet her, to thank her for sharing her story, to tell her how her words had impacted them. And at every stop was there with her, supporting her, proud of the incredible young woman she had become. One particularly memorable event happened at a book signing in Chicago. An elderly African-American man waited in line for over an hour to meet Maya. When he finally reached the table where she was signing books, he had tears in his eyes. "Miss Wellington," he said, "my name is Ernest Roberts. I was a teacher for 40 years on the south side of Chicago, and I had a student once, a young boy who had lost his mother and was headed down a bad path. I saw something in him, though, something special, and I did what I could to help him. I tutored him after school, made sure he had meals, encouraged him to dream bigger than his circumstances. I lost touch with him after he graduated, always wondered what happened to him." Maya's eyes widened as she realized who this man was. She looked at who had gone completely still. "Mr. Roberts," said his voice choked with emotion, "I can't believe it's you." The old teacher turned too, and recognition dawned on his face. "Wellington, oh my lord, I had no idea. I've been following your business success over the years, but I never made the connection. You're the father in this story." Stood up and embraced his old teacher, both men crying openly. "You saved my life, Mr. Roberts. Everything I am, everything I've accomplished, it started with you believing in me when nobody else did." Mr. Roberts pulled back and looked at Maya. "And now you've passed that gift on to this young lady. You've given her what I gave you, what every child deserves, to be seen, to be valued, to be loved." The three of them stood there in the bookstore, connected across decades by a simple truth. That one person's choice to see another person, to really see them and care about them, can change the course of a life. And sometimes that changed life goes on to change other lives, creating a ripple effect of love and compassion that extends far beyond what anyone could imagine. That night, Maya and Mr. Roberts had dinner together, sharing stories and memories. Mr. Roberts told Maya about Young, about his potential and his struggles. Told Mr. Roberts about finding Maya, about how becoming her father had given his life meaning beyond business success. And Maya told Mr. Maya's senior year of high school flew by in a blur of college applications, foundation events, and precious moments with her father. She had been accepted to several prestigious universities, but she chose to stay in New York, attending Columbia University, where she could pursue pre-med while still being close to home and continuing her work with the foundation. The night before Maya left for college, even though she would only be across town, felt a wave of emotion that surprised him. His little girl, the child he had found standing in the rain 8 years ago, was becoming a young woman ready to take on the world. They sat together on the balcony of the penthouse, looking out at the city lights, just like they had done so many times over the years. This spot had become their special place, where they had their most important conversations. "Are you nervous?" asked. "A little," Maya admitted, "but mostly I'm excited. I feel like everything in my life has been leading to this moment. All the pain, all the loss, all the love and support, it's all shaped me into someone who's ready to make a difference in the world. You're already making a difference, said. The foundation has helped place over 3,000 children with foster and adoptive families. The Every Family Counts program is now in schools in 40 states. Your book has sold over 1 million copies and inspired countless people to get involved with foster care. You've accomplished more by 18 than most people do in a lifetime. Maya shook her head. We've accomplished that, Dad, not me alone. None of it would have been possible without you. You didn't just save me that day in the rain. You showed me how to save others. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, both lost in their own thoughts. Dad, Maya said eventually, I need to tell you something I've never said out loud before. Looked at his daughter, concerned by the serious tone in her voice. What is it, sweetheart? The day we met, when I was standing in the rain, I wasn't just sad. I was desperate. I had been thinking about how much easier it would be if I just didn't exist anymore. The pain of losing my mom was so huge, and I felt so alone, and I couldn't see how life could ever be good again. Maya's eyes filled with tears. I had been standing there for hours, and nobody had noticed me. Nobody had stopped. And I was starting to think that proved I didn't matter, that my mom was the only person who would ever care if I was alive or dead. Felt his heart shatter. He had known Maya was hurting that day, but he hadn't realized how deep that hurt had gone. But then you stopped, Maya continued. You saw me, and in that moment you saved my life in more ways than you know. You didn't just give me a home and a family. You gave me a reason to keep living. You showed me that I mattered, that my life had value, that there was still good in the world even though I had lost my mom. Pulled Maya into his arms and held her tight, tears streaming down both their faces. I'm so glad I stopped. I'm so glad I saw you. You saved my life too, Maya. I was successful, but I wasn't really living. I had money and power, but I didn't have purpose or love. You gave me both. You made me a better person. They held each other for a long time, both understanding the magnitude of what they had built together. Their relationship wasn't perfect. They had faced challenges and made mistakes along the way. But they had chosen each other every single day, and that choice had transformed both their lives. Maya's first year of college was demanding but exhilarating. She threw herself into her pre-med courses while continuing to work with the foundation. She joined organizations on campus focused on child welfare and healthcare access. She made friends from all over the world, bringing them home for dinner where delighted in hearing their stories and perspectives. But the most significant thing that happened during Maya's freshman year was something neither she nor had anticipated. During spring break, Maya volunteered at a medical clinic in the Bronx that served foster children. There, she met a 10-year-old boy named David who reminded her so much of herself at that age. David had been in 7 different foster homes in 3 years. He was angry, withdrawn, and distrustful of adults. He came to the clinic with an infected cut on his arm that he had been hiding for weeks because he was afraid of getting in trouble. Maya helped the doctor clean and bandage the wound, talking gently to David the whole time, telling him about her own experience in foster care. When David found out that Maya had been adopted, his eyes lit up with a desperate kind of hope. Did your dad pick you because you were special? He asked. Because I don't think anyone will ever pick me. I'm not special. Maya's heart broke. You are special, David. Every single person is special, and my dad didn't pick me because I was special. He picked me because he saw me and he cared. That's all it takes. Over the following weeks, Maya couldn't stop thinking about David. She visited the clinic every week, and David always asked if she would be there. They developed a rapport, and slowly, David started to open up to trust, to show the sweet, intelligent boy hidden beneath all his anger and hurt. One evening, Maya came home and found reading in the living room. She sat down across from him, and he could immediately tell she had something important on her mind. There's a boy at the clinic, Maya began. His name is David, and Dad, he's just like I was. He's been through so much, and he doesn't think anyone will ever want him. He's been rejected so many times that he's built walls to protect himself. But I can see through those walls. I can see the amazing kid he could be if someone just gave him a chance. Set down his book, already sensing where this conversation was heading. I know I'm only 18, Maya continued. I know I'm in college and I have my whole life ahead of me. But Dad, I can't stop thinking about him. I can't stop thinking about how you changed my life and how maybe we could change his life too. Are you suggesting we foster David? Asked gently. I know it's crazy. I know it would be a huge change. You're older now, you've raised me, you've earned the right to have your freedom back. But I keep thinking about what you told me once about how Mr. Roberts helped you and then you helped me, and now we're helping thousands of other kids through the foundation. What if David is meant to be part of our family? What if he's the next link in this chain? Thought about Maya's words carefully. She was right that he had raised one child already, that he was in his 50s now, and had looked forward to having more time for himself as Maya went off to college. But he also knew the feeling Maya was describing, the pull you felt when you saw a child who needed you, who you knew you could help. Tell me more about David, said. Over the next hour, Maya told her father everything she knew about David. His history of trauma and abandonment, his struggles in school, his health issues that had been neglected in the foster system. But she also told him about David's quick wit, his love of drawing, his curiosity about science, and the way his face lit up when someone showed him genuine kindness. I want to meet him, said finally. Let's not make any decisions yet, but I want to meet this boy who has captured my daughter's heart. The next week accompanied Maya to the clinic. David was there for a follow-up appointment, and Maya introduced him to her father. David was quiet and guarded at first, but knew how to talk to a child who had been hurt by the world. He didn't push or pry. He just talked about simple things, asked David about his interests, listened without judgment. After the appointment, took Maya and David to get pizza. Over lunch, David slowly relaxed, laughing at jokes and asking questions about what it was like to have a daughter who was in college. By the end of the meal, David was talking animatedly about a drawing he had made of a spaceship that could travel to other galaxies. I'd love to see that drawing sometime, said. I'm not artistic at all, but Maya got all her mom's creative talents, so she might have some too. Maybe you could show her some techniques. David looked surprised that anyone would want to see his drawings. Really? You don't think it's dumb? Not at all. Having an imagination is one of the most important things in the world. It means you can see possibilities that others can't see. As they drove David back to his current foster home, a cramped apartment in a rundown building felt his heart ache. This child deserved so much more. On the drive home, he turned to Maya. "You were right," he said simply. "David needs us, and I think we need him too." The process of becoming David's foster parents was even more complicated than it had been with Maya, because David had specific trauma-related needs that required additional training and support. But and Maya were committed. They took classes on trauma-informed parenting. They worked with therapists to prepare for the challenges they might face, and they made arrangements for David to continue his existing therapy and medical care. 4 months later, David moved into the penthouse. They had converted his home office into a bedroom for David, decorating it with space-themed decorations and setting up an art station where he could draw to his heart's content. The first few months were difficult. David tested boundaries constantly, expecting to be rejected and trying to prove to himself that his assumption was correct. He stole food and hid it under his bed, afraid there wouldn't be enough to eat. He lied about small things, habits formed from years of trying to survive in unstable environments. He had nightmares that woke the whole household, screaming about things he had witnessed that no child should ever have to see. But Maya didn't give up. They showed David, through consistent actions and unwavering love, that he was safe, that he was wanted, that he belonged. When he stole food, they didn't punish him but instead showed him that the pantry was always open and he could eat whenever he was hungry. When he lied, they gently helped him understand that the truth was always better and that he wouldn't be punished for honesty. When he had nightmares, they comforted him, sitting with him until he fell back asleep, never making him feel like his trauma was a burden. Maya, despite her demanding college schedule, was there for David constantly. She helped him with homework, took him to his therapy appointments, and showed him the same kind of patient, consistent love that had shown her. She became the big sister David had never had, and watching her with David, saw the full circle of healing and hope. David's 10th birthday, 6 months after he had moved in with them, was a turning point. And Maya threw him a party, inviting some kids from David's new school and from the Foundation's programs. For the first time in his life, David had friends who wanted to celebrate with him, adults who cared enough to make his day special. But the most meaningful moment came when gave David his gift. It was a framed photograph of the three of them together, taken just the week before. Underneath the photo, there was an engraving that read, "Family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up." David stared at the photograph for a long time, tears streaming down his face. "You really want me?" he asked in a small voice. "You really think I can be part of this family?" Knelt down so he was eye level with David. "You're not going to be part of this family. You already are part of this family. From the moment you walked through that door 6 months ago, you became my son and Maya's brother. And that's never going to change, no matter what." David threw his arms around his neck and sobbed. Years of pain and rejection poured out of him and held him through all of it, This child who had been taught that love was temporary and conditional, who was learning that some promises were kept, that some people stayed. 2 years later, David's adoption was finalized. He became David Wellington, officially and forever part of the family that had chosen him. The ceremony was attended by Maya, who had taken time off from medical school for the occasion, and by Mr. Roberts, who had become a sort of grandfather figure to both Maya and David. At the celebration afterwards, David gave a speech that reduced everyone to tears. "I used to think that bad kids didn't get families," he said. "I thought that because I had been in so many foster homes, because I had done bad things sometimes when I was scared, that I didn't deserve to be loved. But my dad and my sister taught me that everybody deserves love. They taught me that my past doesn't define my future. They taught me that it's never too late to heal, to trust, to let people in." David, now 12 years old and thriving in school, looked at Maya with pure adoration. "My first mom gave me up because she couldn't take care of me. My foster parents tried their best, but they couldn't handle my problems. For a long time, I thought that meant something was wrong with me. But then I met my real family, and I realized that sometimes bad things happen not because we deserve them, but just because life is hard. And what matters isn't what happened to us, but what we do next, who we choose to become, who we choose to love." Stood next to his two children, one now 20 years old and in medical school, the other 12, and finally believing he was worthy of love, and felt a completeness he had never known was possible. He thought back to that rainy day 8 years ago when a little girl had asked him a simple question: "Can you be my mom for one day?" He couldn't be her mother, but he had become her father. And in doing so, he had discovered his purpose, his passion, and his legacy. The Wellington Foundation had grown exponentially, now operating in all 50 states and beginning to expand internationally. They had helped over 10,000 children find permanent families. The Every Family Counts program had been adopted by school districts across the country, teaching hundreds of thousands of children about acceptance, diversity, and the many forms that families could take. But beyond all the numbers and the programs and the success, had learned the most important lesson of all, that love multiplies when you give it away, that the more you pour into others, the more you have to give, that choosing to see someone, really see them, is one of the most powerful things a human being can do. 5 years after David's adoption, Maya graduated from medical school at the top of her class. She had specialized in pediatric care with a focus on foster children, just as she had planned. She was offered positions at prestigious hospitals around the country, but she chose to stay in New York, opening a clinic specifically for children in the foster care system. The clinic, funded by the Wellington Foundation, offered free health care to any foster child who walked through the doors. It was staffed by doctors, therapists, and social workers who understood the unique challenges these children faced. And it was run by Dr. Maya Wellington, who understood those challenges not from textbooks, but from lived experience. On the clinic's opening day, and David were there, along with Mrs., Miss, and dozens of children from the foster care system. Maya stood in front of the crowd, wearing her white coat, looking every inch the doctor her mother had dreamed she would become. This clinic exists because 8 years ago a man stopped on a busy street and saw a child who needed help, Maya said. He could have walked past. He probably should have walked past. He was on his way to an important business meeting, and I was just another homeless-looking kid in a city full of people who needed help. But he stopped. He saw me. And that choice changed everything. Maya's voice grew stronger as she continued. Every child who comes through these doors is going to be seen, not just medically, but as a whole person. We're going to treat their bodies, yes, but we're also going to see their hearts, their spirits, their potential. We're going to help them understand that their circumstances don't define them, that they are worthy of care and love and dignity. David, now 17 and planning to attend college the following year to study art therapy, stood next to with tears in his eyes. "Dad," he whispered, "look at what Maya's doing. Look at how many people she's going to help." Nodded, too emotional to speak. He watched his daughter, this incredible young woman who had been broken and lost and had transformed her pain into purpose. He thought about all the children she would help over the course of her career, all the lives she would touch, all the healing she would facilitate. After the ceremony, a young girl approached Maya shyly. She couldn't have been more than 7 years old, thin and scared-looking, wearing clothes that were too big for her. She reminded painfully of Maya at that age. "Dr. Wellington," the girl said quietly, "I read your book, the one about being in foster care." Maya knelt down to the girl's level. "What's your name?" I've been in foster care for 2 years, ever since my mom died. And sometimes I feel invisible, like nobody sees me or cares that I exist." Tears filled his eyes. "But your book made me feel less alone. It made me think that maybe things could get better for me too." Maya took's hands in hers. "Things can get better, I promise you they can. And you're not invisible, I see you. Every person here today sees you, and we're going to make sure you get the care and support you need." Watched this exchange, and he saw the circle completing itself once again. Maya had been helped, so she helped David. David was healing, and one day he would help others. And now was being seen, and perhaps one day she would reach out to another child in need. That evening, back at the penthouse with Maya and David, reflected on the past 13 years of his life. He was now 55 years old, and in many ways these had been the best years of his life. Not because of business success or wealth accumulation, but because of the family he had built and the lives he had touched. "I have something I want to say to both of you," began. Maya and David sat down, giving him their full attention. "When I was your age, David, I lost my mother. And when I was building my business in my 20s and 30s, I thought success was about money and power and proving that I had made it despite where I came from. I achieved all of that and I thought I was happy, but I wasn't. I was empty." He looked at Maya. "And then one rainy day, a brave little girl asked me a question that changed my life. She asked if I could be her mom for one day. I couldn't be her mom, but I became her dad. And in becoming her dad, I found out who I really was. I found my purpose." He turned to David. "And then Maya found you, and we became a family of 3. A family that doesn't look like what society says a family should look like, but a family nonetheless. A family built on choice and love and commitment." Both children were crying now, and felt his own eyes well up with tears. I want you both to know that you didn't just give me a family. You gave me a reason to be better, to do better, to leave this world better than I found it. Everything good I've done in the past 13 years, every life the foundation has touched, every policy we've influenced, every child we've helped, it all stems from that day I chose to stop and see Maya. You two are my greatest accomplishment, my most important work, my truest success. Maya and David both rushed to hug their father. The three of them wrapped in an embrace that represented years of love, healing, and growth. "We love you, Dad," Maya said. "So much," David added. "I love you both too," replied, "more than I ever knew it was possible to love." As they stood there together, thought about all the children still out there waiting to be seen, waiting for someone to stop and care, waiting for their lives to change. He thought about the work still to be done, the families still to be formed, the hearts still to be healed. But he also felt hope, because he had learned that change was possible, that one person really could make a difference, that love really did have the power to transform lives. And he had raised two incredible young people who would carry that message forward, who would see others the way they had been seen, who would love others the way they had been loved. The rain that had brought and Maya together 13 years ago had long since stopped. But what had started on that wet sidewalk continued to ripple out into the world, touching lives in ways they would never fully know. Every child the foundation helped, every person who read Maya's book and was inspired to foster or adopt, every student who went through the Every Family Counts program and learned to accept others, every patient Maya would treat in her clinic, they were all part of the legacy of that one moment when a man chose to stop and see a child in need. Years later, when was in his 70s and Maya was running both her clinic and the foundation, when David was a respected art therapist working with traumatized children, people would ask about his greatest business achievement. He would smile and tell them about the day he walked away from a multi-million-dollar deal to help a child standing in the rain. Some people didn't understand. They thought he was joking or being humble, but knew the truth. That was his greatest business achievement. That was his greatest life achievement. Because on that day, he had made an investment that would pay dividends forever. He had invested in love, in family, in seeing another human being's worth. And that investment had returned more than he could have ever imagined. Bert's about the foundation, about all the children they were helping, about how his choice to help one troubled boy 40 years ago had ultimately helped thousands of children find families mean things, and I thought being mean would make them think I was cool. She wiped tears from her eyes. "My mom told me about your speech at the school board meeting. She said you were brave, and you are. You're braver than me because I was too scared to just be nice." Words moved people to tears and inspired them to get involved, whether through donations, volunteering, or becoming foster parents themselves. Mrs. was overwhelmed. She was a good woman doing her best with limited resources, but 6 foster children were too many for one person to care for properly. The extra support was offering would not only help Maya, but would ease the burden on the entire household.